I was watching the 76 Olympics from Montreal, where a young Greg Louganis was beginning to be a diving sensation. The CBC announcer basically said, "Oh, there's many good divers in the world. Two in the NHL, Steve Shutt and Bill Barber, but here you have the up and coming Greg Louganis." Kind of a throwaway line, but Bill Barber was known to take a dive every once in a while, but that was just a good part of his game. I think this guy was one of the smartest players ever to skate with the Philadelphia Flyers, the Broad Street Bullies. He played his entire career in Philadelphia, a deserving player of all accolades and celebrations. What I find strange here, ladies and gentlemen, that more people didn't emulate his style because it was a combination of penalty minute taking, key situations, and key goal scoring and assists. So Bill Barber, seventh round by the Flyers in the infamous 1972 draft. That draft was loaded for bear, and I'll tell you why. You had Billy Harris, Jacques Richard, Don Lever, Steve Shutt, Jim Schoenfeld, Michel Larocque, Bill Barber, Dave Gardner, Wayne Merrick, George Ferguson, Phil Russell, John Van Boxmeer, Bobby McMillan, and Mike Bloom, just as some of the key ones in this. Wasn't a good year for the Q, but a good year for the OHA. Now, Barber was a native of Callender, Ontario. On his best days, about 190, 195 pounds, tough as nails, 6 feet. First came to major prominence with North Bay of the NOHA in 68, 53 points in 34 games, and 69 again with North Bay, 70 points and 100 minutes and penalties in those contests. So some of his grit was starting to show. 1970 in the OHA with Kitchener, 86 points in 54 games. But the next campaign was huge. 105 points in 61 contests and 107 points in 44 for contests. So he's getting close to 2 points a game. He did play center in junior hockey, but was moved to left wing upon turning professional. Now, his appearance with the Flyers in October of 1972 heralded a new era for the team because before this, you had Bobby Clark and a young Rick McLeish. But when Barber arrived, Barber could play power play, kill penalties, do all kind of stuff. His famous number 7 was eventually retired by the Flyers, and he only officially retired in August of 1985. Now, in the NHL, in 903 career games, 420 goals, 462 assists, 883 points. That don't tell the whole story because every goal he scored was big. He's played with the 2 Stanley Cup winners, 74-75, the Canada Cup, the greatest Canadian Team Canada squad of all time, beating the Russians and the Ed Van Impe game, tremendous. Now, again, from 73 to 83, in the postseason, 108 points in 129 games, 53 goals. Now, he was a Hockey Hall of Fame inductee in 1990, and when he coached the Flyers later on, he won the Jack Adams Award for Coach of the Year in 2001. He was a Sporting News West Rookie of the Year in 73, and also a 2-time Stanley Cup finalist in 76 and 80. NHL All-Star First Team in 75-76, NHL All-Star Second Team 78-79, of course, on left wing. Now, All-Star Game appearances 75, 76, 78, 80, 81, 82. 100-point seasons, 1976, combined with his only 50-goal campaign. This is one of the best season ever, ironically lost to Montreal. He was a very, very, again, good defensive player. He set an NHL record of most shorthanded goals in a single playoff series, 3 against Minnesota in 1980, and he's the co-holder of the record, and most shorthanded counters in a single playoff year. Now, he holds the Philadelphia record for most goals and most points a season by a left wing with 112 and 420. Philadelphia Class Guy Award in 81. He was Philadelphia captain for almost 2 years from 81 to 83. Philadelphia Flyers Hall of Fame inductee in 1989. And of course, New York took him to the WHA draft in 72 with no headway. He was the NHL playoff goals leader with 12 in 1980 and points leader for the Flyers in 79 and 81. He was Philadelphia goal leader, 41 in 78, 34 in 79, 43 in 81, and 45 in 82. He was the playoffs points leader for Philadelphia in 82 and playoffs goals leader twice for Philly in 80 and 81. Now, He was named Philly's assistant coach upon his retirement in August '85 and remained there until June 8, '88. He was served as the Phillies' interim assistant coach from February 26, '94 through the end of the campaign. He was named the Flyers AC on July 5, 2000, and then was named Philly head coach on December 10, 2000, and remained in that position until April 30, 2002. He was also named Philadelphia's Director of Pro Scouting in June '88 and remained in that position for 7 years until December 30th, '95. He was also named Tampa Bay Director of Player Personnel on August 14, 2002. Now, like I said, the LCB line with Clark and Reggie during his years in Philadelphia set a massive record in 1976 with 141 goals. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, they could have scored a lot more, but they weren't played for most of the third period after, a big first two periods for most contests. He was runner-up for the Calder in '73, and of course he played the left point on the Philly power play with his massive, beautiful hair blowing in the breeze. Now, he had an ACL injury with his right knee in March '77, and of course, his legacy, he set an NHL record with the Flyers in 1979-80 with 35 games undefeated. Now, a well-known money player, he tied John Rattel and Charlie Simmer for the NHL's most first goals 10 in '79-80. He tied the NHL record since broken for goals in a playoff series with 9 against Minnesota in 1980. He was also captain of the Wales Conference All-Star squad in '82. Now, injuries were starting to catch up with him. He missed part of the '83 season with a torn MCL in his right knee, suffered when he crashed into the boards in Pittsburgh on December 4th, '82. Now, his last big years with the Flyers, he played in line with Daryl Sittler and Ilka Sinisalo, and that trio scored 14 points in a game in Hartford on January 8, '83. I saw that game, and let me tell you, it was a hot one. He bad jaw injury in January '83, but did not miss any additional games. Now, his right knee injury flared up again at the end of the '84 season. He needed reconstructive surgery, which led to his retirement. Doctors had found that his ACL was damaged and his cartilage and meniscus were torn. There was also a fracture in the joint. The injury had plagued him for 2 seasons, and doctors said only the exceptional strength of his quadricep muscle had enabled him to keep playing. The time needed to recover from surgery was expected to keep him out of the entire '85 season, although he did attempt to come back prior to the decision to pass up the remainder of the season and go into coaching. Again, his number was retired on October 11, 1990. Now, post-draft teams, of course, he played with Richmond for a short while, played with Team Canada or Team NHL at the Canada Cup in '79, and won a bronze for Team Canada in the '82, and of course won gold at the Canada Cup in '76. Now, he won the Calder Cup in '98 with the Phantoms as the coach. He was a World Championship All-Star First Team in '82, and the World Championship Goals Leader in '82 with 8, tied. Again, he was named the interim head coach of Hershey of the AHL in March '85 and remained there until the end of the '85 season. He was also named the interim head coach of Hershey on December 30 and promoted to full head coach some 4 months later. He relocated with the team to Philly in '96 and remained there until July 5, 2000. Now, he coached the AHL regular season champs in Philadelphia in '97 and '98. He only played 11 career minor league games, scoring 9 goals and 14 points before being called up to the NHL for good in October '72. Now, he's not the only successful Barber in the family. His younger brother, a former minor leaguer, John Barber, and the older brother, a former minor leaguer, Danny Barber. Now, unfortunately, his wife, Jenny, the love of his life, died of lung cancer at age 48 on December 8, 2001. So, Barber, when you think of that '76 team, you think of those 2 years championships. When Shiro converted them to left wing, he scored at least 20 goals in every season. Again, the best year was '76. Now, in the Flyers' successful '74 and '75 Stanley Cup playoff campaigns, he contributed 3 and 6 goals respectively. He also had 6 goals in an unsuccessful '76 playoff run. In addition to his respected scoring abilities, again a good two-way player. On the power play, he was equally valuable for setting up the play as he was for pulling the trigger, and a force in the defensive role he was capable. Now, in the '76 Canada Cup, Barber scored one of his most famous goals while playing for Team Canada. Behind the final against Czechoslovakia, Barber scored to send the game in OT, an eventual Team Canada victory by, of course, Darryl Sittler. Now, he was a team leader for the next decade in 1980, again the 35-game record unbeaten streak, and helped the Flyers get to the Stanley Cup with a number of key playoff counters against the Rangers and Stars. Now, the 2 years that he captained the Flyers, and his good pal, him and Rick McLeish, both had 53 goals in the playoffs. So it shows you how determined he was. Now, ironically, on January 14, 2017, he played before a sold-out crowd of over 19,000 at the Wells Fargo Center in the Flyers' 50th anniversary alumni game against the alumni of the Penguins, playing along Bobby Clarke and Reggie Leach. The game ended a 3-3 tie. Before the game, Barber announced that it would be his second retirement, as it would be his last alumni game. Now, after his playing career, he started coaching with the Bears and, of course, the Phantoms. And his time with the Director of Player Personnel lasted for 6 years. And his name was then added to his Stanley Cup for a third time in 2004 with Tampa Bay. In 2008, he returned to the Flyers when he was named a scouting consultant. Now, Barber and his late wife Jenny have 2 children, of course, and as well very active in his private life and his charitable endeavors. On September 25th, 2010, the Bill Barber Sports Complex was opened in his honor in his hometown of Callander, Ontario. So, the Flyers Montreal games were quite interesting, because Barber on certain nights would mimic Guy Lafleur. So you had to look really closely if you're looking at Lafleur or Barber. But the playing with the Kitchener Rangers, ladies and gentlemen, 127 goals in 3 seasons. Like I said, a tremendous player. Now on the junior level. So just to recount, from 73 to 84, 30, 34, 34, 50, 20, 41, 34, 40, 43, 25, 27, and 22. He would easily have scored 500 goals and 1,000 points, but like I said, injuries kind of caught up with him. Now, at the Canada Cup in 76, 2 goals, and again, 8 counters and 82 at the Worlds. Now, 75, he played the All-Star game in Montreal, then in Philly in 76, great homecoming, then in Buffalo in 78, Detroit 1980, LA in 81, and Washington in 82, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. The Flyers in 2 seasons, he lost in the conference quarterfinals both of his playoff campaigns in 01-02, and again, Calder Cup winner in 98 with Philadelphia. Again, 2 Stanley Cup championships as a player and 1 as a staff. But Bill Barber, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we had back in the day. Okay, you had Goodenough, you had Kinderchuk, you had Andre Dupont, you had Hound Dog Kelly, you had Barber, Leach, McLeish, Clark, you had McElhargy, you had Tom Bladen, you had Daly. I mean, the names are historic and endless. And the idea about the Flyers, they were better on the road than at home, because sometimes at home they were getting kind of, not to kind of say easy going. Only Montreal could really battle them at home and be successful. But when they went to Toronto or Montreal or Buffalo, afraid that was the referees hated them, eh? But I mean, Bill Barber said once, he said, we're not just a fighting team. He said, we're a pure team. I really think, Derek, that the only reason why the Flyers lost in 76, a lot of people feel this, because they weren't totally healthy. McLeish was injured. McLeish would have made a big difference against Montreal in 76, but he was out. To beat somebody, Montreal needed 4 lines. And the Flyers in 76, they were missing 1 player for the 4 lines. That makes a big difference. Look how Connor Bedard was treated at the World Championships this week. He was off his game. And John Tavares was off his game. There was a play in overtime he could have scored against Switzerland. I'm not saying that Bedard or Tavares is as good as Rick McLeish, but Bill Barber. But ladies and gentlemen, this is how it was with the Flyers. Kate Smith would sing, and then there would be fights and there'd be good plays, but it was always like a 6-3 or 6-2. But for whatever reason, ladies and gentlemen, the Rangers and Boston and Minnesota, that was their big rivalry. They never really had it against Montreal after 76, because basically it was a passing of the torch, right? But But Barber, that 76 Canada Cup team, like I said, he was the straw that stirred the drink for a lot of people. And I know there's a lot of Flyers followers on our channel. All I can say, ladies and gentlemen, what a pleasure to see Billy Barber and Reggie Leach and McClish and Bobby Clark, okay, and Gary Dornhofer and all these, Kinderchuk and Ross Lonsbury. I mean, Bill Clement. It's we knew every player on the Flyers. See, the Flyers were Canada's team. They were just like Boston was, like fourth or fifth teams. Eh? So you put it this way: if you turn them into the, I don't know, Ontario Flyers and had some games in London or Ottawa, holy freak, man! Imagine if the Flyers wore a Canadian jersey, like a Canadian, not a Montreal Canadiens jersey, but by the way, I always liked the Flyers beating up on the Maple Leafs. That made my Saturday. I'm not a big fan of Brian Glennie. Hungry man dinners indeed. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of the legendary Bill Barber, one of the most underrated sports athletes ever. Because to say he's underrated, he is underrated. Because to me, he's a top 20 player in the NHL of the 1970s. And that's not an understatement. You can't think of the 1970s without Clark, Barber, and Leach. That's the three ones right there. And like I said, Canada Cup 76, the greatest team Canada of all time. And only the top 20 players ever made that team, and he was on that team. It's a team that Jean Pronovost couldn't make it, René Robert couldn't make it. That's the way it goes. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, hope you're enjoying the hockey. Connor McDavid looking for his first cup. Canada lost to Switzerland overtime shootout, so things happen in hockey. Have a good one, and don't forget, as we say in Northern New Brunswick, and before Bill Barber gets stripped, possibly, keep your stick in the ice. Have a good one. Bye.